There's a story so old it predates the Bible. A story carved into temple walls, whispered in mystery schools, encoded in hieroglyphs that took centuries to decode. And right at its center is an act of violence so specific, so deliberate, that the ancient Egyptians chose to make it the foundation of their entire spiritual system. A god gets his eye torn out, not killed, not exiled, not forgotten. His eye, specifically, is ripped away, destroyed, and scattered. And the question no Egyptology class ever asks out loud is, why the eye? Of all the things you could take from a god, his throne, his power, his life, why does this story, across thousands of years and countless retellings, always come back to the eye? Because the eye isn't the point. The eye is the symbol, and what it symbolizes is something so dangerous to those in power that they didn't just suppress it. They rewrote the entire story to make sure you'd never look for it. Today, we're looking for it. The story they taught you. Let's start with the version you probably know. Osiris was the king of Egypt, god of life, death, and resurrection. His brother Set, consumed by jealousy, murdered him, cut his body into 14 pieces, and scattered them across Egypt. Osiris's wife, Isis, gathered the pieces and resurrected him long enough to conceive a son, Horus. Horus grew up, challenged Set for the throne, and in the battle that followed, Set tore out Horus's left eye. In some versions, Horus loses it entirely. In others, the god Thoth, the divine physician, the keeper of sacred knowledge, heals it and returns it. The healed Eye of Horus became the Wadjet, the all-seeing eye, the eye of protection, perception, and royal power. You've seen it. It's on the American dollar bill. It sits atop the pyramid, hovering above the structure, separate, radiating light. That's the story. God, murder, resurrection, a torn eye, a healed eye, a symbol of power. Fine. But here's what nobody asks. Why does Thoth heal it? Thoth is not a warrior. Thoth is the god of writing, wisdom, magic, and secret knowledge. He is the keeper of the sacred sciences, the hidden technologies of consciousness that the mystery schools protected for millennia. Why would the keeper of secret knowledge be the one to restore a torn eye? Because the eye isn't about sight. It never was. The eye that sees without looking in every ancient tradition that survived the great erasures, Egyptian, Hindu, Tibetan, Gnostic, Sufi, there is a consistent reference to a faculty of perception that exists beyond the five senses. Not imagination, not intuition in the casual sense. Something precise, something physiological, something located in the center of the skull, behind the forehead, at the geometric midpoint of the brain. The pineal gland. René Descartes, the father of modern rational philosophy, called it the seat of the soul. Not metaphorically. He believed it was the single point in the brain where the immaterial mind interfaced with the physical body. The ancient Egyptians had a name for it too. They didn't call it the pineal gland. They called it the Eye of Horus. And the anatomical precision of this is not an accident. When you cross-section the human brain and look at its internal geometry, the shape formed by the thalamus, hypothalamus, and pineal gland corresponds with remarkable accuracy to the cross-section of the Eye of Horus hieroglyph. This was documented by researchers including R.A. Schwaller D. Lubitsch after studying the Temple of Luxor for years. Not coincidence. Blueprint. The Egyptians were mapping the brain, and they hid the map inside a myth. What was actually torn out, so now the story changes completely. When Set tears out the Eye of Horus, what he's actually tearing out, symbolically, is access to the pineal gland, the capacity for higher perception, the ability to see beyond the material veil, to receive direct knowledge, to bypass the control systems of organized belief and touch the source directly. And who benefits from that being removed? Set, in the myth, is not just a villain. Scholars of Egyptian esotericism describe Set as the principle of chaos, materialism, and separation. He is the force that keeps consciousness fragmented, individual, disconnected from the divine whole. He is, in the language of the Gnostics, the demiurge, the false architect, the one who benefits from humanity being cut off from its own inner knowing. When he tears out the eye, he isn't committing random violence. He is performing a very specific act of spiritual lobotomy. And the terrifying part, look around. That surgery has been performed on an entire species. The calcification campaign here is where the ancient myth crashes directly into modern biology. The pineal gland in a newborn child is soft, active, and rich with a substance called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the same compound found in the most powerful hallucinogenic plants on Earth, the same compound that floods the brain at birth, at death, and during the deepest states of meditation, the same compound that ancient shamans spent decades learning to access deliberately. You were born with a DMT factory in the center of your skull. By the time most adults in the modern world reach their 30s, the pineal gland is partially or fully calcified, hardened, silent, producing little to nothing. The primary culprit, fluoride, the compound added to most public water supplies since the 1940s. Fluoride accumulates specifically, disproportionately, in the pineal gland more than any other tissue in the body. This was documented by British scientist Jennifer Luke in the 1990s, research that was quietly acknowledged and quietly buried. Other contributors: processed food, electromagnetic radiation, pharmaceutical compounds, artificial light at night disrupting the gland's light sensitivity cycles. Set didn't need to tear the eye out this generation. The infrastructure did it for him. And the most chilling part is that we don't even feel it missing. Because a calcified pineal gland doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. You just slowly lose access to the frequency, and you call it growing up. The 14 pieces of Osiris. Let's go back to Osiris, because his story holds the other half of the code. 14 pieces. Set cuts the body into 14 pieces and scatters them. In Egyptian cosmology, Osiris represents the whole self, the integrated, complete, divine human being. The 14 pieces represent the fragmentation of that wholeness, not random fragmentation. 14 specific aspects of the complete self, dismembered and scattered so that reassembly becomes the supreme spiritual task. 14. The number is not incidental. The lunar cycle runs on a rhythm of 14 days from new moon to full moon. 14 days from full moon back to dark. The Egyptians tracked this precisely, and here's what that means. The dismemberment of Osiris, the fragmentation of the complete self, is synchronized to the same lunar cycle we explored last time, the same 28-day harvest timer, the scattering of the self across 14 lunar stations, requiring a conscious act of retrieval to become whole again. Isis doesn't find all 14 pieces. One piece, the phallus, the generative creative power, is lost forever in the Nile, swallowed by a fish. She fashions a replacement from gold, the creative power of the divine human, made artificial, replaced with something man-made, a A substitute that produces offspring, yes, but not the original. Sound familiar? Your creative power, your ability to generate reality from pure consciousness, has been replaced with a system. Work, consumption, reproduction within approved structures. A golden substitute that keeps the species functioning, but cuts it off from its actual generative force. The myth isn't mythology. It's a diagnosis. Why Thoth had to be the healer now? The role of Thoth makes perfect sense. The eye cannot be healed by force. It cannot be healed by politics or revolution or breaking systems from the outside. The only thing that can restore the eye, restore the pineal gland, restore higher perception, restore access to the inner source, is gnosis, hidden knowledge, direct inner experience, the kind that bypasses every priest, every institution, every mediator, every authority that placed itself between you and the divine. That's why Thoth heals it, because Thoth is the transmission of that knowledge, and it was never meant to be guarded by mystery schools and sealed in hieroglyphs. It was meant to be given back. The mystery schools encoded it so that it would survive the dark ages of control, so that when the time came, when enough people were ready to ask the right questions, the map would still be there. You're reading part of that map right now. The eye is not gone here is what nobody in the suppression system wants you to know. The eye cannot be permanently destroyed. That's the hidden message in the myth that always gets overlooked. Thoth heals it. It comes back, not diminished, fully restored, and more powerful for having been torn out and recovered. The pineal gland, even calcified, is not dead. It is dormant. And dormancy is not death. It is waiting. Research from institutions, including the University of Michigan, has confirmed DMT is endogenously produced in the human brain throughout life. The gland doesn't stop. It slows, it calcifies, it gets suppressed, but the signal doesn't stop transmitting. The receiver gets blocked. The transmitter keeps going, which means the frequency is already there. It has always been there. You don't need to build something new. You need to clear the interference. Start with what you put in your body: filtered water, reduced fluoride intake, real unprocessed food. Start with darkness, deliberate, deep darkness during sleep, away from screens, away from artificial blue light. The pineal gland is a photoreceptor. It activates in true dark, the same way your eyes adjust when you walk from sunlight into shadow. Then go deeper. Meditation, not the 5-minute app version, the kind where you sit until the noise stops and something underneath it begins to speak. That something has a name in every tradition that managed to survive the great erasures. The Egyptians called it Horus restored. The Gnostics called it the divine spark. The Hindus called it Atman. The mystics of every culture, across every century, called it by the same name in different languages. The part of you that was never controlled. The real reason it was hidden, let's be direct. A human being with an active pineal gland, with access to direct inner knowing, with the capacity to perceive beyond the constructed consensus reality, is ungovernable, not dangerous, not violent, ungovernable. You can't sell them an identity. You can't keep them in manufactured outrage. You can't make them worship a system that offers to connect them to the divine because they already are connected, directly, without intermediary, without priest, without algorithm, without authority. That's the threat. Not power, not weapons, direct perception. Set didn't tear out the eye because he was jealous of Horus. He tore it out because a being who can see clearly cannot be ruled by illusion, and illusion is the only tool the false architect has. But here is what the story always returns to, what it insists on across 4,000 years of retelling. The eye grows back, not despite the attempt to destroy it, because of it. The tearing out creates the quest creates the healing, and the healed eye sees more clearly than the one that was never challenged. You were never meant to stay asleep. The system that tried to keep you sleeping was never as powerful as the light it was trying to contain. Horus got his eye back. So can you. If this opens something in you, share it with someone who is ready to remember. Like, subscribe, and keep asking the questions they told you to stop asking. Because the map was never destroyed. It was just waiting for someone brave enough to read it. See you in the next one.